I still remember the sound of the key turning in the lock that night. It was late, later than I usually stayed out, but I wasn't worried. I thought I was coming home to the woman I loved, the woman I'd built my future around. But the second I pushed open the door, something felt wrong. The lights were dim, the air heavy. And then I heard it, low whispers, muffled laughter, the creak of the bed we shared. My chest tightened, but I forced myself forward, step after step, until I reached the doorway. There they were, my girlfriend, tangled in sheets with another man. My world froze in that instant. I couldn't move, couldn't breathe. It felt like the ground had given way beneath me. And the worst part? She didn't even flinch. She looked right at me, eyes sharp, lips curled into the coldest smirk I'd ever seen. And then she said it, the line that would echo in my head for weeks, months after. You were never supposed to find out like this. No apology, no panique, just pure arrogance, as if I had intruded into her moment. That wasn't guilt I saw on her face. It was satisfaction, almost like she had been waiting for this. In that moment, I realized the betrayal wasn't an accident. It wasn't a slip-up. It was deliberate. But what she said next made me realize this wasn't just a mistake. It was a choice. When I first met her, I thought fate had finally given me my person. She was radiant in a way that pulled every eye in the room. But what captured me wasn't just her beauty. It was the way she laughed, as if the world had no weight on her shoulders. We talked for hours that first night, and by the time I walked her home, I already felt like I'd known her my whole life. She called me different, said I was kind in a way most guys weren't. I held onto those words like they meant everything. From the beginning, I poured myself into us. I worked long hours, picking up overtime so she wouldn't have to stress about bills. I shelved dreams of traveling, of starting my own business, just so she could chase her degree, her ambitions. Whenever she needed a ride, a favor, or just a shoulder to lean on, I was there. No questions asked. That's who I was, loyal, steady, dependable. But even in the honeymoon stage, little cracks showed. At first, they were subtle. She'd brush off my opinions in front of her friends, laugh at my clothes, tell me not to try so hard when meeting her family. Whenever I raised concerns, she'd wave them away, saying I was being too sensitive. And then came the phone, always face down, notifications silenced, her thumb moving fast when I entered the room. Still, I told myself it was nothing. That loyalty meant standing firm through doubts. That love wasn't about walking away when things got tough. I convinced myself her sharp edges were just stress, or immaturity, or quirks I needed to learn to live with. Because deep down, I believed commitment meant sacrifice. And I was willing to sacrifice anything to keep her smile. What I didn't know was that while I was fighting for us, she was slowly erasing the very foundation we stood on. I ignored the signs, but the storm that was coming would tear everything apart. Started small, the kind of moments you can brush off if you tell yourself a good enough story. I remember one night we were heading out with her friends, and I had on a shirt she'd once told me looked good. As soon as we walked in, she gave me this disgusted glance and muttered under her breath, "Why do you always dress like that? You're embarrassing me." Her friends laughed, and I stood there pretending it didn't sting. But it did. Cut deep. The comments kept coming. Sometimes about my job, other times about how clingy I was when all I wanted was a few minutes of her time. The more I tried to talk about it, the more she twisted it back on me. If I asked why she was out late, she'd sigh dramatically and call me insecure. If I mentioned how distant she seemed, she'd say I was overthinking. Somehow, every conversation ended with me apologizing for making her feel controlled. Then came the secrecy. Her phone was always glued to her hand, screen tilted away, quick swipes and hushed tones when I walked into the room. One night, I asked directly who she'd been talking to so much. She didn't even hesitate, just tossed out a name. Eric. He's just a coworker. Don't be paranoid. But Eric wasn't just a coworker. I didn't know it then, but I felt it in my gut, and my gut was screaming at me. The night it all boiled over was at a party. I stood there with a drink in hand, watching her laugh just a little too loudly at Eric's jokes, touch his arm a little too often, leaning close like I wasn't even in the room. My own friends pulled me aside, whispering, "Man, are you seeing this?" My face burned as I nodded. I was seeing it, everyone was seeing it, and she didn't care. She wanted me to see it. After that night, things spiraled fast. She'd vanish for hours, come home smelling like perfume that wasn't hers, and brush past me like I was just furniture in her way. Each day, I felt myself shrinking smaller, my self-respect draining until I barely recognized who I was. And then came the night everything shattered. I unlocked the door, stepped into our place, and heard the muffled laughter. The whispers, the bed creaking. My stomach twisted, but I had to see it. I had to know. I pushed open the door, and there it was, the truth I had been avoiding, lying bare in front of me. Her body tangled with his in the sheets that used to be ours. Her eyes found mine, not with guilt, but with that same cruel smirk. "You were never supposed to find out like this." Her words sliced deeper than anything Eric could ever do. Because in that smirk, in that line, I realized it wasn't just betrayal, it was contempt. She hadn't stumbled into a mistake. She had chosen this. And as I stood there, betrayed and humiliated, I knew I couldn't stay another second, so I disappeared. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I didn't even ask why. The second I saw her lying there with him, I knew there was nothing left to fight for. Words would have been wasted on someone who had already chosen to betray me. So instead, I turned around, walked into the closet, and pulled out a bag. A few shirts, jeans, my passport, and the essentials, just enough to get me through the next few days. She called after me once, half-hearted, almost annoyed that I was leaving so quietly. But I didn't give her the satisfaction of a response. That night, I disappeared. I shut my phone off, deleted my social media, and sent a single text to my closest friend, "Don't tell her where I'm going." And then I was gone. The first weeks were hell. I stayed in a cheap motel in a city 3 hours away, staring at the ceiling night after night, replaying every memory, every red flag I had ignored. Anger would hit first, rage that I had wasted years on her. Then came grief, the crushing emptiness of realizing the future I'd built in my head was nothing but ashes. Worst of all were the questions. Was I not enough? Was there something wrong with me? But slowly, painfully, I began to rebuild. I found a job, nothing glamorous, just steady work that gave me a routine. I joined a gym, not to look good for anyone, but to remind myself I was still alive, still capable of strength. I met new people, co-workers who invited me out for drinks, neighbors who waved when I passed. Bit by bit, I was piecing together a life that wasn't defined by her shadow. Months passed, the memories dulled. I even caught myself laughing again, genuinely laughing, something I thought I'd never do. For the first time in years, I felt like me. And then, just as I started to believe I was finally free, she found me. It was a Tuesday afternoon. I was at work, halfway through my shift, when one of my coworkers said a woman was waiting outside for me. I walked out, confused, and there she was, standing by the door with tears streaking her face, looking smaller than I'd ever seen her. I froze. My chest tightened. My pulse raced, every scar she'd left on me ripping open at once. She took a step forward, her voice trembling. "Please, just hear me out. I made a mistake. I was stupid. I've changed." Her words poured out like a rehearsed script. She claimed Eric had meant nothing, that she had been confused, that losing me had opened her eyes. She begged for another chance, swearing she'd do anything to prove she was different now. And I'll admit it, part of me wanted to believe her. Part of me wanted to cling to the girl I met on that first night, the one who said I was different, the one I thought I'd spend forever with. Closure is a dangerous thing. It makes you think you need answers when really you just need peace. But as I looked into her eyes, I saw the same flicker I'd seen that night in our bedroom. That smirk disguised as sorrow. That confidence that I'd be too weak to walk away. I stood there, torn between the love I once had and the reality I couldn't ignore. My mind screamed to stay strong, but my heart, my foolish heart, ached to believe her. And then she told me why she had really come back. But when she revealed the real reason she had come back, my blood ran cold. Her tears, her trembling voice, all of it. It was an act. And I realized it the moment she finally told me why she had shown up. Eric had dumped her. The man she threw everything away for, the man she humiliated me with, had tossed her aside like trash. To make things worse for her, the same friends she once used to mock me had turned on her too. She was alone. And suddenly, I wasn't her discarded boyfriend anymore. I was her backup plan. She didn't come back because she loved me. She came back because she wanted stability. Because she thought I'd still be standing there, arms wide open, ready to clean up the mess she'd made of her life. For the first time in years, I spoke without fear of losing her, because I realized I had nothing left to lose. I told her the truth. About the nights I stayed awake wondering why I wasn't enough. About the years of disrespect, the way she chipped at my self-worth until I barely recognized myself. I told her how I disappeared not to punish her, but to save myself. And then, I said the words she never expected to hear. "I don't want you back. Not now, not ever." Her face fell, the desperation twisting into rage, but it didn't matter. I walked away. And this time it was on my terms. The fallout was swift. My coworkers who'd seen her waiting outside pulled me aside later, praising me for not caving. "Man, She only came back because she needed you. Good on you for standing your ground. Friends who had quietly worried about me before now celebrated my strength. And when I finally shared a piece of my story online, the response was overwhelming. Hundreds of strangers on Reddit said what I needed to hear. She didn't want you. She wanted your loyalty after she burned every bridge. Classic case of someone realizing the grass wasn't greener. You didn't just dodge a bullet, you dodged the whole firing squad. For once, the chorus wasn't just my own thoughts screaming inside my head. It was validation, proof that I wasn't crazy, that the pain I endured was real, and that walking away was the only right choice. The outrage of others became my closure. Every comment, every message, every nod of agreement reminded me that I wasn't the villain in this story, I was the survivor. But walking away wasn't just about rejecting her, it was about finally choosing me. When I look back now, the betrayal no longer defines me, it shapes me. At the time, it felt like my entire world had collapsed, like everything I had poured into our relationship was wasted. But disappearing, as painful as it was, gave me something I never expected, a second chance at myself. In those quiet nights alone, I learned that peace matters more than proximity. I discovered that love without respect is just control disguised as affection. And most of all, I realized that loyalty is worthless when it's one-sided. For years, I gave everything to someone who treated my devotion like a weakness. But walking away taught me that real strength isn't in holding on, it's in knowing when to let go. When she came back, I could have sought revenge. I could have humiliated her the way she humiliated me. But I didn't, because I no longer needed her validation, and I no longer wanted her apology. Closure didn't come from her words, it came from me choosing not to carry her weight any longer. Now I stand taller, not because I'm flawless, but because I finally see my worth. Betrayal didn't break me, it forced me to rebuild. And in that rebuilding, I found freedom. If there's one thing I want anyone listening to take away, it's this: never be afraid to walk away from toxicity. No matter how much history you share. Starting over may feel terrifying, but staying in a place where you're not valued will destroy you. I'm free now, free from her shadow, free from the doubt she planted. And for the first time in years, I'm not haunted by the past. I'm hopeful for the future. So tell me, if someone betrayed you like this, would you ever give them a second chance?